just one rider. I mean, you can watch the screen on the slides. If something is small or something is not visible, I think that's time for caffeine, right? Okay. Because I purposely had it full screen. You won't have more than 4 words on a screen. I mean, that's how small my eyelids can go down. So let's see that, right? Experience. I mean, experience is all about how we see, smell, hear, taste, and feel. I mean, that's what experience is all about, right? And also the sixth sense. I mean, it's about intelligence and collaboration. That's all what we look at. And what we try to do is build solutions over this, and that's what we are. So in software, those doesn't exist. So we are talking about see, hear, and feel, right? I mean, while there may be a need for smell, there may be a need for taste, and it doesn't exist at this point in time, right? And they also include input, speak, and move. When you say see, it means that you also input data. When you hear, you also speak. When you feel, you also move, right? And we call it the UX, the user experience, the audio, and the touch. And they also include, when you say UX, how do we enter data as well? When you talk about audio, what's the voice aspect as well? And when you talk about touch, about the gesture as well, right? And the sixth sense as in-memory optimization and collaboration. I mean, that's the whole part of how we look at things, right? Let's look at how do we get these ideas? I mean, what's the way we get new ideas, explore new things? And let's assume we've got a Ramco idea bucket across, and we closely follow a lot of Kickstarter projects, and that's where new concepts come in, and then they emerge. We spot them at that point, start using them, and then trying to learn. And we talk to analysts. They tell us about the trends across. I mean, we constantly are in touch with analysts. And we talk to academia as well. We come to know about what's in research. They won't have become a product, and what's in research. Then, of course, Ramco. I mean, as people are saying, we have got a very powerful system internally. That's a social platform. And people contribute all content sorts of ideas. I mean, let's assume you have a screen up front, as VA said, that gets reviewed over the collaboration platform, new ideas. How could we do this? All that stuff that happens in Ramco. So we get a lot of ideas from them. And we constantly monitor TechSun's Disrupt, CES, and stuff like that. And Mashable, of course, and online content. I mean, above all, it's you. Your input goes a long way in making this bucket fill, right? And what do we do with this bucket? We try most of it. We test the promising ones. We transform the value creators. The objective is that we need to create value for you, and that's our objective as well. So we don't leave in testing anything. We test a lot, and we rather filter something out of it which becomes unpractical. Then we test internally. We test it with our internally within Ramco with our customers, and then once it is proven, we transform it across, right? So that's about UX, audio, and touch. Let's look at UX. I mean, we have been talking about Chrysalis. I mean, that's one part of a big initiative that's been there to streamline the entire user interface, bring the latest usability into the application. It's all about cutting the clutter, merging a lot of screens, removing all the clutter across, and make the user interface look simpler. Then you have straight-through processing, wherein the whole application is configurable. And it ensures that right from a 5-step to 1-step, 5-step to 2-step, the application configures itself and then go ahead with that. And we're talking about standardization user interfaces. I mean, we have got a dedicated user-centric design team, which takes care of the industry trends, which ensures that the business needs versus the industry trends fit well. And above all, it is navigation. How do we navigate? I mean, that's the key part. See, at the end of it, I want to do some activity in the screen. Possibly I want to raise a purchase order or authorize a sale order or something of that sort. How do we reach there? That itself is a challenge nowadays, right? So, what do you talk about clutter? What does it mean? Imagine these days, right? You had all of these across, some not even shortly, some years ago. And what happened? All of these are directly in one device. I mean, you have cut the clutter, and this device does all that activity. I mean, I'm not very specific about the brand, but that's what it is. Your smartphone has done that. And we are planning to do it for interfaces. I mean, that's what we do in Chrysalis. So you got a lot of screens, you do a sale order, you do a purchase order, you can supply invoice, you do a cash receipt and all that stuff. In a hub, all of this gets together, and that makes, and it's more contextual, and what you see there is what you actually want to do, right? And this is an example of HCM. I mean, you get, the screen is so visual. Pardon me, this doesn't match the criteria, so of small fonts, right? This is yet another sample, and we got, I mean, vertical leaders who can talk more about it. And that's one. The other part of it is like, yeah. The other pretty interesting stuff, I mean, why I'm saying that, I mean, we could always have the product teams talk about it. Very interesting stuff is the timeline on top, right? This timeline, that actually is very short, precise depiction of what has happened in the history. I mean, otherwise you would go across history, search, find out list on all that stuff. On a timeline, you get to know what has happened right from it. You can replace it with equipment, you can replace with I mean, an order, a document, an idea, all that stuff. This is a very powerful representation across, right? Then, how about one window for a lot of other reasons? See, if you look at it, I log into an application today, and we got my inbox, which gives me information about all the activities that happens around. It could be all the documents, and look at it, let's assume, I mean, you have a purchase request, and your job is to authorize. What will I do today? I could possibly go, search all the requests, give some criteria, find the value and all that stuff, and then find out what is relevant to me, and then go ahead and authorize. Look at the other way. I mean, you will be doing this for 10 different documents, 20 different documents. And look at it here, this is just one list which tells you all the documents that are very relevant to you, and you just have the action buttons here. So you don't need to launch a screen to do an activity. I mean, that's the best part of it, right? You don't need to launch, search, and then do some activity. Right on your inbox, you get all this. So this is an inbox from within the application. Then we've got something called the wizard. The typical wizard story is about this. It's about, you normally, let's assume I play a particular role, and normally I do certain set of activities I do. I mean, I possibly request for a quotation, I authorize quotation, I may make payments, I do something else, the whole chain, and we can stitch this chain and then give it a name called wizard. And that helps me to do this. And the beauty of this wizard is that this can be an effective training platform for the fresh people who are going to enter into the system. All you need to do is, there is a wizard of this name. You guys go ahead, do as per the steps there. That would be a great training program. And the best practices would be shipped by the product, and the implementation can fine-tune it, build something more as well. Right? And you also have the menu map. This is the entire product being represented. You just have names and icons that can represent what you can do. That's also possible. You can have the favorites. The users can themselves build favorites. I mean, I would like to normally group them together because there are some activities which I do on the weekend. There are some activities I do on the day end. There are some activities I do during budgeting. There are some activities I do when shutdown planning. Things like that, you can group yourself together, so you don't need to search across and then pick up something. You don't need to do that as well, right? And the other very powerful stuff is that system learns how you are using. I mean, this place starts with a blank screen. You start using the system, and depending on the use, the frequently accessed activities get bigger and smaller. So the higher probability is that you are going to use these first, and then you go ahead, click it, and then continue it. So when you start doing things, I mean, as an end user, you'll be using, say, 5 screens, 10 screens max, and you could have just here. You don't need to search at all. The objective is, don't search, go do what is relevant to you. That's the key part of it, right? That's one. Let's take a case wherein I'm working on a particular sale order. I mean, sale order number, I'm just typing it. I get 10 items to do it. I'm just keeping typing. And somebody comes up and says that, I want to know instant information about this sale order also. Can you pull that to me? I mean, what will I do? Okay, then fine. I'll just close this, launch an application again, take it? No. What you can also do is, you can get one more, if you look at it, you can get one more work area right inside the application, continue within the application, go do all that stuff, close that work area, come back and continue what you have been doing. So it maintains that state, it maintains all that stuff. So you can have 5 sale orders parallelly open, fine, no problems. All of them would maintain sanity across. So We are bringing that as well. And the user interfaces have become a bit intelligent, say that if there's a small line here, it means that you have to select this data for the application to work for a minimum requirements. Right? So that's about multiple workspaces. And still, you've got a lot to choose. What we have also done is, see, let's assume this is a user interface. There are a lot of things you can do in the user interface, but there are something which is very relevant to reason. There's something which is relevant to this. So all you have to do is, we have brought menus right up to the control level. For example, like if there is a tax code, or if there is, say, a asset class, and you right-click there, it will give you menu items which are very relevant to asset class. You could possibly edit a tag, you want to add something, and stuff like that, right? So we have taken it to that level. Wherever you want, you can go ahead and then do that stuff. That's also there. You just go ahead, create a new class right from there. Otherwise, you would have been a link below, you've got to search and then do that stuff. And we have brought that as well. And about standardization, we standardize on terminologies. That's why I said the user-centric design group does that. It standardizes on terminologies. It standardizes on the icons across. A save will look the same way across the application, right? I mean, save with a green button, save with a red button would mean differently. If they are for a particular purpose, they look the same across the application. That's what the user-centric design team does, right? And we also standardize on the user interfaces. This is the level of standardization we do. That's about Chrysalis. Right? We are also working on the glass, I mean, the smart watches. Then I've not covered here.
Just you can talk at least.
Yeah. So not only that, just going back to extending it further. I mean, what you also can do is like there's something called during implementation. If you need certain fields to be visible for a certain set of people, and it's not necessary for the others, to make the UI more relevant, you can go ahead and then start hiding controls that way. And that ensures that when that user logs in, and he gets to see what is more relevant to him, right? And users can themselves personalize stuff which are there within the screen themselves. They can hide, rearrange, and stuff like that. They can say, I don't want this, it's not relevant. I can rearrange columns within the grid and all that stuff. So the user interface becomes more contextual based on the user's usage, right? That's also possible. Now coming back, I mean, we're also working on the glass, the smartwatches, and the nearables. I mean, glass in the smartwatch, I mean, all of us would know about it. I don't want to tread on of them. And let's look at nearables. And that's a pretty interesting subject that's coming up. I mean, BLE 4.0, I mean, that's from a technology perspective. BLE, I mean, I found this interesting in one of the decks. And that's a concept wherein, see, if you look at, innovative solutions, I mean, geolocation was something great, right? If the application senses you when you're on the move, it knows where you are and gives you very relevant information from where you are. That's great. Let's assume you are in this building, on a 10-story building. How does geolocation work for me? It definitely doesn't work for me because all of them will get the same latitude and longitude. That's where nearables come into play. These are small beacons that get placed across. I mean, to relate it, at Ramco Chennai, we have got these nearables devices, the small devices, kept across the floors. And when I enter a particular floor, my mobile tweets me, notifies me on what is that is relevant for me to do in that floor in that point in time, right? It's that focused content right to your device. And that's the power of it. So if VA comes to my floor and he gets to see that Cheenu had supposed to deliver this, and he had said that he'll be delivering it next week. So do you want to follow it up? I mean, he gets checks that way. The very other interesting stuff is, let's assume VA goes down to a floor, and the moment he enters the floor, he gets a notification saying that Mr. X, Mr. Y, it's his birthday today, right? So VA just walks in, goes to this cubicle, and they say, wishes happy birthday. I mean, that's the value prop which can do in an operations system. That's one part of it, right? But actually, on the industry part of it, it's all about contextual information. It's about micro-location, location of to a distance of 1 to 30 meters. So that's a short distance we are talking about. And it obviously helps you in doing indoor maps as well, right? Imagine this. You have got a huge warehouse, and somebody goes and picks up items from there. And the typical way we do is, we give them a pick list, and the person goes across the floor, across the warehouse, picks items across. Imagine, he just drives the vehicle. As he nears to a particular rack there, say G3, G4, whatever it is, he gets a tweet saying that, he gets a notification saying that, in this rack, pick these items. All he has to do is just keep picking as he travels, and then bring it to the dispatch. There they know on what item to go to what order. So it's not that you give an order and then go pick it for it. Rather, it's that by the way you are moving, I can pick items and then collect it. That's more. And second thing is, if you know huge warehouse, you travel for 15 minutes, and as you get as much as the recent information of that 15th minute. So you don't need to come back and go for something else. So that's the value addition it can bring you. And other thing is that, since it knows the proximity, you keep, I normally say that, you just keep walking, you will be informed, right? If it's something is relevant in a particular place, you get information about that at that right time. That's the key part of the whole solution, right? And it's pretty wide implications. I mean, let's assume that you want to manage a facility like this, and you can just sit here, and then you get more information about it, about the temperature, because these sensors have accelerometers built in, they have temperature sensors built in, they have all that sort of sensors across, they keep beaming them across. All you have to do, your smartphone can sense it, and then build quite a lot of interesting information about it. That's possible. And you get to have non-intrusive learning systems. And nearables will play a big role in Internet of Things. That's the key part, because Internet of Things is about huge data, trying to make sense out of it, and definitely nearables will play a big role. And above all, didn't you have this feeling? I mean, I actually have a problem. So I pack always. If I had an application saying that you have missed your charger, right, that would make a lot of sense for me. Right? I always go search for a charger, search for a plug. All it requires is a small sticker. I mean, that's a nearable sticker. Stick it across on your devices, and your app knows that you're on a trip. You're supposed to pick these things up, and just finds from there and then tells you all of it. So that's something which could be done. And we are also eager to work on HoloLens. The Microsoft very promising offering that's coming up is blending virtual reality or what you see. I mean, the next level of visualizations. And the iWatch, actually, we have started working on it because we've got the beta SDKs available. So on the iWatch. And this is a secret bracelet. I mean, this pretty interesting concept which is coming up, wherein you just wear this bracelet, you just look at your palm, you have the display on your wrist, you can operate on your, touch the wrist, and you can work on it. You don't need to have a specific display device on it. So we are eagerly waiting to get onto that mode as well. So once these technologies come up, and when it follows the test, try, transform process, we will have solutions across there, right? That's about user interface. And getting onto audio, our applications will get an audio icon across, so you can possibly dictate the order number, dictate the part number. You can start dictating what you want. Let's say you want to launch a purchase order screen. You say create purchase order, your screen would launch. I mean, things like that. I mean, that would make the interaction more real. And for example, these icons there would help you do that. And the key capabilities of that is you have voice input for select items. You have text to speech. Let's assume you have got a long text. You would like to let the system speak about it. You can go ahead and do that. You can, of course, have a chat across, voice chat also, right? The potential, if you have voice, if you have intelligent search, you have something like Siri for the enterprise, right? That's what we need, right? I mean, I'm on the move, I want to get something which is very relevant. You just speak on the phone, you get information. That's not far away. I mean, we will reach there, right? The natural extensions. This is one thing which I normally look at. I would like it because the technologies are evolving on it. Forget computers being there. You will have a speaker right next to your workstation, be it on the assembly floor, be it on the plant. You have a speaker, and the speaker is connected on the internet. So you can push data right to the speaker and let it speak. So let's assume you are on the production line. 5 minutes, it just beeps and then say, you've got a work order coming, and that's what is this item for. I mean, I would rather start doing that activity I mean, it's just be there. Why should I check something? And speaking stations would come into place, would start talking to the internet, to the cloud, and then start getting in. That would be what's coming across. And contextual audio alerts, as I said, merging them with nearables. You move along, you get alerts across. It's like carrying a walkie-talkie along with you, with somebody very intelligent talking on the other side, right? Those are natural extensions. The next, going forward, let's look at gesture. I mean, that's a pretty interesting stuff which is happening around, right? I mean, where data entry is not possible or may not be possible that way. I mean, we still would like to do operations. We would like to have computers. We would like to do something about it. For example, if I were to capture data here, other than automated data, I can't do anything here because you can't put a computer here, right? You can definitely put a computer here, but he has a gloves in his hand. You may not be able to operate it as well, right? Of course, here, she can't even speak. And it's so clean here. You can't have things which will gather dust. And can we just move your hands from a distance and system understands what you want to do, right? That's possibly how the ERPs the applications would go in the future. And you can just do this, right, with your tablets and iPads and stuff like that, with not so costly accessories as well. I mean, that's what it's going to go. We are working with partners as well on this. We've got solutions we're trying to work on. We're in the tri-phase on this activity. So pretty promising industry. So a lot of interest. For example, like you are on a maintenance shop, your hands are soiled, you've got a work order you want to complete. The best way to do is, there's a tablet in front of you on the wall, you just say, done. Your work order is complete. You want to reject something, just do this. I mean, the work order is rejected. You don't need to touch a system. You don't need to type anything. Just by shaking hands and possibly waving hands, you can do all that stuff, right? That's practically possible today. And with the technology maturing, that would be where we would go, right? This is a typical example. I mean, very, very real example. I'm doing something. I want a manual in front of me. I want to go to the next page, do this. Next page is there, and I'll just do appropriately. I just want to go this way. It will go to the next chapter. I do this. I want to go something else. I can keep doing this and continue to keep working on my systems. And that's something which is practical usage of these gesture-based systems, right? And these relevant gestures, you can build gestures on, which is very relevant to me. If you want a flight to take off, I just do this way. You can report that flight has been taken off. You want to do this, you can say flight has landed. I mean, such gestures would make whole life pretty interesting, possibly using the system more enjoyable, right? And not only that, I mean, there's also a very interesting solution which is there. I mean, it's very evolving now. Where imagine, I mean, you have an equipment master in front of you. You've got all the equipment details. And that equipment, as a mechanic, I'm looking at it. I want to know how it is connected. Wouldn't it be fine? I just take my hand this way and then do this. I can see what's behind the equipment, the behind of the equipment, this side. So I know where all it gets connected. I exactly know what are the pins to connect and then go ahead and doing things. Otherwise, I would have to look at engineering drawings for it and all that stuff. It's like CAD or something which is operated right from your hand. I mean, that's possible today. I mean, and we are possibly progressing towards that as well, right? That's about touch. And for the sixth sense, we have Minel, our agent-based optimization engine, which scales phenomenally. It takes all the processing, whole lot of algorithms that's possible, all that is being done. And we also have collaboration, and we are talking about device-independent collaboration for interaction. It's not about you collaborate from a device. Irrespective of the device you want to collaborate, you can go ahead and do that. And we're also talking about cognitive intelligence. So these are the areas from a sixth sense perspective, right? From Minel perspective, we are adding new business processes, new algorithms, and we are looking at enhancing the interoperability. We've got a whole lot of things that's happening around here. A lot of processes, a lot of functions, for example, an MRP. I mean, that's one part of it. Things like that, wherein optimization is something major and a lot of dynamism that's involved. We are adding constantly new processes there. We're adding new algorithms and how we want to operate how we want to optimize these. And also enhancing interoperability, wherein the engine exists on the cloud. And with IoT, this is very interesting in the sense like I keep just pushing data across to the cloud, and the engine which is there on the cloud does all this activity in real time and gets a feedback to me. So all these small devices become intelligent because of this in-memory processing there, this multi-agent processing. And about collaboration, the traditional collaboration has been through notes, attachments, workflows, in emails. Right? That's been the traditional attachment. We took it to one level and then said a concept called discuss it with VA was talking about. It's one place which is constantly available across the application. You can just discuss about various topics. You can add a topic, delete a topic, do all that stuff. You can have a message. You can type your message here. You can post this message, and this will be one concept, one interface where you can interact seamlessly across the entire application, right? That brings that amount of collaboration into the application right in front. Of course, this has got all the attachments along with it, the workflow along with it, all that built in this into entire screen, right? We are actually taking, you can discuss on multiple topics there. Yeah, you can attach a document, as I said. You can go ahead, post your message, and you can also flag a message for future reference. You can do all that stuff. Right? We are taking it still further. We are taking collaboration to the cloud. I mean, to say that, and also to the devices. Let's assume I'm working on my computer. I'm just working on something. I want to talk to somebody or somebody who's on the move. My colleague who's on the move. I want to collaborate with them on a chat across, right from within the application, across the cloud. And I can go ahead and do that. And we want to bring meeting into place within the application. So you start a meeting within the application and then start discussing about that as well, right? It's as simple as this. Within the application, there's an icon on top. Say, just start chat within the application. The system lists the users, and you just pick up whomever you want to do and then start chat. As simple as that. Once you do that, we have got the whole chat infrastructure which is available here. And what all you can do, you can take images, you can record photographs, you can start a voice over the internet. You can do all that stuff right from within this place. And if you want to do a meeting, like a GoToMeeting and stuff like that, all you do is just click the meet. You can start meeting. So the binders here gives you the context, and you can type your messages here. And if you want to add images, you want to write on some document over it, superimpose, you can go ahead and do all that stuff. And you also can manage to-do lists. I mean, that's also possible. And if you want to share a screen and then start working with it, you can go ahead and do that. For example, like imagine a support scenario where I'm working on a system. I want to check back with my teammate on how do I do that. All I do is go ahead, click on meet, you start sharing what you see here, and the person you are going to meet could be on the move. He could be on a smartphone, with a tablet, wherever he is. He can start sharing right away, collaborate, and then he can start voice, you can type messages, and then all of this gets, the power of this is the context in which it works. For example, like, let's assume on a work order, let's assume you create a work order, and you start collaborating on that work order. A binder gets created for a work order. When you start chatting it, you start typing all that stuff, and once the entire process is complete, a work order gets closed, this entire chat gets stored along with the document as a history across. So whenever you want to look at it, you look at it, and the entire history is available across. So that is very contextual chat that's also available, right? For this, we are working with our partner Moxtra, and this is where you get to see the share screen. You have the screens here, which would come, and you can pick people here. And you can also chat on this place. All this is contextual, right? To bring this, we are partnering with Moxtra. I mean, that's a collaboration platform, and we actually believe in the right technology for the right solution. That's important because the whole lot of technology is available. That's why we are very particular about the try, test, transform phase. So we are very particular about that. So we believe in the right technology for the right solution. And we are working on so much technologies around. For example, Moxtra for collaboration. You've got Saffron Technologies. We've got TrustSphere for experience. You've got Leap Motion, as I told you. It's about 3D gestures. finding out how things happen. We work with Estimate for the nearable space. You get a Pebble for the smart watches. I mean, all these are what's happening. So these some of the technologies we work with. I'm purposely not mentioning about the big wigs like Oracle, Microsoft, Google. I mean, they are all technologies that exist. These are the pretty promising, which is very close to my heart. I'm just mentioning it there. And we also have some of our partners to talk about these solutions here, right? By that, before I call on them, any inputs, any feedback, any questions we can take? Yeah.
You said on the one part we would be able to maybe hide things from certain users when we create it.
Yeah.
Would they be able to bring it back once we hide it?
Yeah. They won't. I mean, let's assume you take it 2 steps. One is when you roll out a solution, you can say that for this particular role, and these are not relevant. As an implementer, he can switch it off. Anything which is switched off by the implementer is not visible to the end user. He can't alter it.
You can also change the label. In various countries, you may use different label for different things.
When I implement, I would like to change the way the caption would look like. I mean, a part number could be a stock number in a particular context. You can go ahead and change it, and that's very specific to that particular implementation. And the beauty of that is you get the next version of the software coming in, rolling out. This continues to be there. So you don't change software for that. Yeah. Yes.
And some of these names that you saw, variables, and all that, these are not things which have not been tried. So if you in your company want to do concept, you can do it with Cheenu. It's all been tried by him, and it's all working in our labs in some form or the other. If you have a use case you want to try it out, you're most welcome. So we will welcome a real use case to try it out in your organization.
Yeah.
We're not using the product yet, but are you looking at my understanding of all the control is at the screen level? Are you doing anything with field level control of records so you can restrict at the field level access to a particular, editing a particular field?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when I said that you can hide something, it's about, let's assume, on a purchase order screen.
We don't want to hide it.
Yeah.
We want to somebody to be able to read it,
Oh.
act on it, but we don't want to be able to change
exactly.
that particular
When I
field.
said hiding, it's also including locking. You can prevent it from editing. That also is possible. Yeah, sorry. Because the light is blinding, so I'm sorry, I couldn't see you. That's meant to make me look smarter. Please.
About the nearables, what's typically the range with which these nearables work in terms of proximity, and what are the challenges that you would have in having them used as a solution when it comes on the 3-dimension, basically on the length, breadth, and on the vertical as well?
Yeah, pretty interesting question. The various ranges of nearables, they right from 15 feet to 70 feet. That's the range. And it's very important that just placing a nearable at one place will not solve problems, right? You have to visualize it on a radius scale. I mean, that's the way you have to visualize the solutions. So the concept of triangulation comes into place because your phone could sense three nearables across. If these 3 are there, then you have to assume a location here. And if it is based on that, the application has to understand multiple beacons emitting controls. I mean, that's fundamental to the logic. Right? So what actually the infrastructure does is, it senses whatever it is, it also senses the distance part of it. That's important. For example, like I have a sensor here, right at the podium. I have a sensor in the middle of the room. I have a sensor at the gate. And you start moving in somewhere. There's some point in this room wherein all the 3 will say, I'm here. Right? And what the system also would tell you is, it's at what distance is this sensor from. Right? Based on that distance, you can make sense of what the whole thing happens. And the interesting part of it is, I mean, if they are placed at radial directions, there's something more you can work on. It's the signal intensity as well. All these get given to the application as well. The application has got all these data. Based on it, the intelligence works out. Yeah.
Collaboration. Can Can the collaboration invite other users not part of the organization? Say a third-party vendor I could share my screen with or exchange
Yeah.
messages.
If you look at it, I mean, since you're talking about third party, if it is a ESS user, we would suggest it at this point in time to be a part of the registered users within your system. It's not necessarily that they have to be a super user or a person who would modify data. Otherwise, you would have anyway given them a URL as a vendor login. You just log in as a vendor and then start doing it. See, the reason is it's the whole collaboration is within the enterprise space, right? You got because there's some amount of data privacy that's involved in this. There's some amount of data protection in it. The list what you see as the invite users is very contextual. Depending, let's assume I represent LA as an organization unit, and I work in a particular warehouse. I'm on that order. I want to invite people. You can invite people by default. Only those who are related to that order, right? You can also, let's assume you want to do something more, you want to collaborate on a general idea, the application on, the collaborate on top of the application would be within the organization. So the list of invitees to the whole chat is absolutely application driven. Application can choose, depending on the context, depending on the data sensitivity, bring all those content inside.
So probably later on in the future, you could assign a guest token wherein the user could just like log in temporarily just for that session and then move forward.
And the very important part of it, you need to store that content along with your document, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like you get on a G-chat and then forget it after that. There's no record of it. The objective is that it should be part of your data. Only then it's more relevant. I mean, think about this. I mean, you can have your performance appraisals over this, right? You can just initiate a 360 across. You can add notes. You can add documents along with it. You can, I mean, I don't like this, but I don't like Cheenu because he wore a drab shirt today, right? And stuff like that, you can take a snap of me and then put it across. It's some way I get into this application. Yeah, that's possible.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah? Yeah, please.
When is the enhanced screen going to be available for?
Yeah, the screen part of it, and the hiding part of it. The product teams, I mean, the product teams can give you input on that.
Yeah.
I mean, the sessions would get input on that.
Yeah, I think it is available in the ERP team has rolled it out. Aviation team, Sam will share when will they roll it out. R&D has rolled out to the product teams. So one by one, the product teams are introducing hiding of columns, renaming of columns, and so on and so forth. Maybe Sam has already done it for all you know. But all is being rolled out with the team. So it is off virtual works now. So anybody in application can show up this now. The multiple sessions you can start now. So ERP team is the first one to roll out everything. And aviation team was busy with the stability issues, didn't want to risk any more things. So maybe they are a bit more conservative, but ERP is rolled out all that he has talked of.
Yeah? Yes? Pardon? Oh, mic is coming.
Are you all looking at any of the innovation that's happening in sort of the 3D printing space, General Electric with fuel nozzles, and what that means for the future when, for example, you might license the ability to print something from a, OEM and that sort of thing?
Yes, 3D printing is definitely in our radar. It's just that. Did I do anything? Yeah, I'm back. Okay, 3D printing is definitely in our radar, and at this point in time, it's not in my test list. I mean, I'm in my wish list as well.
We just want to add that we are starting innovation labs with some of our customers, and Singapore government has shown interest. In some cases, they are agreeing to fund half the cost of that. We have some PhDs, doctorates from specialized areas working with us. Some PhDs have already joined us from Germany right now for this. So in case you want to set up a small lab between 5 and 25 people to work on something very cool stuff, innovative stuff, there is a model that exists. You can discuss with Harsh. Harsh is here. Harsh, raise your hand. Yeah, you can recognize Harsh. Harsh, stand up. Yeah. So you can see Harsh. So you can work with Harsh. He has the arrangement with the Singapore government to work out creation of those kind of labs to try out new things, and also arrangements with various universities with whom we can tie up in areas of specialization. We have already tied up for the logistics part of the institute in Germany. Similarly, for other areas, we can tie up 3D printing. We have with NTU in Singapore. So they are the most advanced in 3D printing right now. So those kind of tie-ups can be done with various universities based on your areas of interest. And proof of concepts could be translated into real-life projects and so on. And we have Ramaswamy also, who has run similar labs earlier for a pharmaceutical company in US and for various others. Ramas, will you stand up? Yeah, he ran it for 3 years. A lab for one of the pharma giants in US, something similar, for bringing out newer and newer things. And they were working on some very cool stuff ages back.
Had somebody else asking? Yeah, please. Yeah, I mean, right here it's not there. And what we're looking at as we progress is we call it flexible sections. I mean, we just have areas wherein you can have controls, and the end user can say that I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this, realign. That's on the cards, but it's not there what has been released now. So that's on the cards.
See, what we have is a card-based design that I shared earlier. So that has showed up now. So you can say, my screen, I don't want this information. So you may have 25 cards. I want to display those 8 cards on my screen in the card-based design.
So that's at a card level, which is a collection of 5, 6 data items together. We will progress it to the control level as well, right? Do you have a question? Yeah, I'm there. It's possible for others to hear you, but I can hear.
Thank you. The matter also for people is to learn the system, and do you have also some kind of enhancement to help the people learning every day the system, because the system is very heavy, very rich, and you don't have time to go through all the functionalities.
Yeah.
There are some enhancements for like daily tips or something like that that could.
Yeah, I mean, from that perspective, the wizard is a perfect example for that. I mean, let's assume, there are 2, 3 ways in doing things. One, if I say that this is, as a product champion, not me, as a product champion who understands the business, he can stitch a sequence of activities which is very seamlessly moving ahead. That's one way to suggest you starting. You jumpstart the solution with these activities. That's one. Let's assume there is something which is very specific to your particular industry, to a business, to an organization. You can stitch something there right at the time of implementation. That's second. Third, as an end user, if I have a particular pattern of how I use the system, I can stitch myself as well. As a user, I can stitch that I normally do this, and I would like this step first, then this next, and this subsequent to that. I can step it. That becomes my learning continuously, right? So all I need to do is, let's assume I do something which is once a month or once in 3 months. I tend to forget it because where did I do this? I call somebody else. All you need to do is once you are inside that particular screen, there's a small star on the top. Just say click, that becomes, you can add it to your list of activities. That becomes a small group, and that becomes the system keeps learning the way you want to do it. That's when you want to teach the system. The other part of it, when I showed you the menu cloud, system keeps monitoring what all you use, and based on that, it makes that thing bigger and smaller. So let's assume, give you an example. There could be 1,000 ways in which the application could be launched, right? But as a user, I would possibly have a subset of 10 or 15 activities which I would like normally to use. System knows that, and then gives a weightage also onto that, and then gives you bigger, smaller, and stuff like that to prompt you to go to the most obvious choice when you start using the system. Right? It does that as well. We
use something called Solar Search, which has a lot of capabilities which we have not yet exploited because it carries heavy processing cost as well. Since you're on cloud, if you do contextual search, we can slow down everybody else. If you have adequate CPU power, you could utilize the capability of Solar Search, which can also be contextual. Based on what you have keyed in the previous field, the next field will show you different result. Say if you are working on a bell, it won't show you Augusta parts, for example, and so on. So it can be contextual. We have not exploited this feature as yet because there is a heavy cost of processing cost of doing so.
Yeah. We have some of our partners here today. We have Markstra, we have TrustSphere, and we have Saffron Technologies. And let's welcome them. Mani, our partner friends here. And
Please don't want to be the guy that falls going on stage.
let's start with Mani. I mean, he represents Markstra. And
excuse me.
This is your clicker.
This is the one?
This forward, this back.
Thank you. I think I don't even need to give a presentation because Cheenu did such a good job of explaining what Markstra does. But I'm going to just introduce the company a little bit. Good afternoon. I'm in the business development side of Markstra, and for us, team collaboration means that we have geared our services and made the platform towards mobile centric. So it's towards mobility, but it's not just for mobility. So what our product does is it works equally well on any device, starting from an Android to a Windows device to iOS or tablets and smartphones. Our company is young, it's 2 years old, but our stake in the collaboration space has been for many years. Subra Iyer, who's the founder of WebEx, is the founder of Markstra. For those who know WebEx, was one of the first ones in online collaboration with real-time meetings. And it was Subra who started this company with Stanley Wong, who's our senior director of engineering. And together they came up with Markstra. So the way that we look at our platform right now, there are a lot of applications that are outside. And instead of rather having another application for collaboration that runs separately like others do, what we did was our vision is to have a platform that works from within other applications. So any form of collaboration, which might be from instant messaging to sharing files to online meetings, we've actually put them all nicely together and we offer them from other applications. We believe that today when people are working in a certain place, they don't need to bounce out of that dashboard and go towards another application, share a file, or they have a conversation, but it should all be part of it. And the context should be that dashboard. So what our framework is to provide collaboration and attach it towards that. So with that said, some of the features that Cheenu was talking about are the Meet side of it, which is the real-time meetings, and it works equally well, like I was telling you, on any device. There's a clip feature, which is layering your voice and also doing drawing, which is annotations on top of these documents as you share them. And then the next is, we call it chat, but it is a lot more than that. It's actually adding files, adding comments, and it's a lot more dynamic. So here's our application as a standalone, the way it looks like, which Cheenu was talking about. So if you take a look at it, we have something called the binders, which is actually your workspace, which most people are going to have various different workspaces and projects they're working on, etc. And on the right side, what we've done is we've layered chat or added chat and then pages, which is actually content, and then to-dos. And then on top of it, if you see on the upper right corner, is the meat. So we've actually put all of those things together. And rather than, once again, putting it out in the market as a separate application, we've actually built a platform, and we are working with Ramco to take this and work together as a partnership. Just a little bit to toot our horn. We just recently released a new version. We were rated in business and overall category as the #1 application in the Apple Store. So very proud about that.
Nice.
Thank you. Any questions?
We'll now have Chad Smith.
Thank you. Cheers. How you doing? I'm Chad Smith. I am the CIO and VP of Sales Engineering at Saffron Technology. Saffron, we like to say we're the intelligence of everything. Saffron actually was founded over 15 years ago. It actually started in 1999. So we've been around for a long time. We have Dr. Manny Aparicio was a neuroscientist and was working at the Intelligent Agent Lab at IBM. Met Jim Fleming, who was a programmer. They came and knew there had to be a better way to handle this world of big data before the word was even really big data. So what they actually looked at doing was how could they make, being a neuroscientist, the best computer he had ever seen was the brain. So how can we start to make code work and think and act like and anticipate things like the human brain? So how can we start really, taking the natural intelligence of things, connecting the data, instant-based learning like we do, reasoning with the context of the situation that you're in, and combine that really with the power of this large data. So what they actually did was build Saffron. And 9/11 happened, 9/11 happened. They went into the DoD, really honed their brain on finding the unknown problem, which was a huge problem around the world, looking at the structured, the unstructured data, the notes coming off of the field, looking what's happening from flyovers, looking at all this information and bringing this information in, and actually looking. People were out there saying, we found 85% of the match rate duplicates on the unknown. Right, yeah, because they're unknown. There was not the same people. How do you do that? You have to actually look at the context, the situation, and look at that information. They built that on top of it. And through that, there's been a lot of the three-letter agencies that we can't talk about. There's a few others that we can. But we took it to Boeing in 2006 and have been working with Boeing since 2006 is where we went commercial. With them, we've done a number of projects through the years. In fact, they've had over 45 developers over the time work with our application and help deploy this in a number of different areas across the organization to solve some pretty complex problems around predictive maintenance and in-flight and inventory harmonization, part harmonization, some of the things we've talked about earlier. I heard some people mention looking at inventory, looking at the SKUs, looking at different ones as people merge, looking at these inventories, how can you identify parts? But it's looking at all the details, looking at the descriptions, looking at that information, and identifying it to one. So really, what we've built and what was built was we call the first truly cognitive computing platform. Cognitive computing is a really big buzzword. You might hear the word and you're like, why is that so big? Well, it's because IBM, Watson, say they're cognitive in computing. They are for aspects of it. But we kind of jokingly say they're Watson, we're Sherlock, because we use the context of the situation and look what's there to really make relevant decisions. By doing that, once again, some of the things you've already heard me say, instant-based learning, looking at the connections and context to what's relevant to help make decisions by looking at all that information. We automatically learn, and we're and we've been doing it for 15 years with scalability. You can see a large kind of group of products up there, clients from USA, finding financial services, Baker Hughes for oil rigs and looking at how to look at assets on oil rigs and how those change. I think someone was talking earlier about some of the helicopters and the environments they're in. It could be the same plane, the same asset. Well, how do you build an individual signature of what those parts look at without taking in the context of where it's being operated in, it can really dramatically change how those parts interact. And that can't be done all just by sensors. It has to be done by the human intelligence and the input that people get. And that's what we're doing and bringing in to give you the unified view of those assets. How do we do it? I won't go into it. I just wanted to put this up here that there is a process and approach. No matter which one of those clients, all kind of go through the same general idea, bringing in all the data, the large data. We have industry parsers that actually go through and pull the things of interest that are really important. All that's great, but really all it is these dots. At the end of the day, it's the things that are important to you, your industry, your parts, and how do you want those connected? Because really what we're building is looking at the connections, the counts, the semantics graph around that, and the statistics with that over time. So I think we talked earlier about lots of data. In most of your companies, 80% of your data is unstructured and probably unused. This allows you to exploit, leverage, and find it while it's where it is at rest. The only time we need it is to bring the information long enough to read it, gain the knowledge, push it into our memory base, and then you get the ability to use our reasoning layer, which is our APIs that allow you to do those contexts. Go find similar. You know, we always find it interesting is I can use the same call to go find me a same bad guy, go find me a bad part, go find me a bad plane, go find me a plane that looks like this plane that just had an issue. It's the same call because once we've got it in the middle, it's just connections and context. And once again, we've built this around, based upon our background with the reasoning layer, we have visualizations that we are now plugging in, but we built it backwards to most. We didn't build the pretty glass. We built the brain instead because that's who we were working with. And now we're going in and we're building the visuals. And that's one of the things that we're looking at with this great partnership that we have going forward. Some of the other things that you look is adding in complex processing. So, you know, how do you find things that are similar? How do you find things that are not? It's not usually one call. It's not how your human does it. If you want to look at a situation, I promise you the next time someone mentions Saffron and they mention big data or they mention data, we're the context that's going to pop to the top and it's going to distinguish the difference between the two. So once again, we have lots of use cases, lots of industries that we've worked through. The one I'll focus here is the large asset. Millions of parts, looking at planes, looking at an aircraft, looking at oil carriers, it doesn't matter, bringing those together. Where we looked at this one, it was a unification of up to 80 different sources of information, both structured, unstructured, bringing it in. One of the major problems they were having was an obsolete fleet that's gone longer than anticipated. Means parts fail a lot quicker. I know everyone's shaking their head because they've seen the same problem. How do you get to that? Well, the problem was when that asset's on the ground, it's not making money, it's losing money. How do you get it faster? Well, before then, they had to go flip through the manuals, go through the information. We did the auto connection, we gave it to them. We actually took, some of them were longer than this, but they actually took it down to 5 minutes. Millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars since this was actually implemented over 8 years ago. And I can go into more, be more than happy to have some further discussions on some of the other ways in which we've applied the exact same reasoning to personalization. Because really what this is, it's personalizing it about the thing that's important to you as a company at that time. And that's what we're doing. Thank you again for the time. And do you have any questions?
Let me see the questions for the boat tonight.
Okay, vote for the
night.
night.
We're running really behind, so let's save all our questions for
Just so you know, my answers get longer with beer, so. Okay. Thank you.
Next up is Manish Goyal.
I'll try to keep it relatively short because I know we're running a little bit behind. A little bit about TrustSphere. Let me just tell you a little bit about my background first and how I got to TrustSphere. Prior to founding TrustSphere, I'm the CEO and founder of TrustSphere. Prior to founding TrustSphere, I worked with PricewaterhouseCoopers for a number of years in their venture capital business out of London. And we were looking specifically at disruptive technologies and disruptive technologies for the enterprise. So when I came across TrustSphere, we felt that we were really going to disrupt the marketplace. And in fact, TrustSphere is disrupting the status quo. I mean, the Ramco theme is disrupting the status quo. We feel that we're disrupting the status quo Not just do we feel it, but the market does. Our clients, the analysts, the marketplace in general. Some of our clients, just to give you an idea, we were founded in 2011, so we're still relatively new. But clients of ours are people like the US Senate, State of Massachusetts, GE is a client of ours. We're working with Singtel Optus out of Australia and Singapore government. So we have several hundred clients across the world. What do we do, though? We do something that we think is quite interesting. We're also working with Ramco specifically to disrupt the status quo. I'll talk a little bit about what we do in a minute. But IDC certainly thinks that we're working, the partnership that we have with Ramco is disruptive to the marketplace. So what is it that we actually do? We do something called relationship analytics. And what relationship analytics is it really understands human behaviors. It understands, from a contextual perspective, connections within an organization. And what we track is we look at communication flows that are going on in an organization. Those communication flows are very telling about what's happening. And the reason for that is this. At the end of the day, humans are all creatures of habit. We do the same things on a regular basis, on a day in, day out basis. Employees are no different. By being able to understand what employees are doing and starting to see deviations and changes in those particular patterns, you start to get a lot of insights into what's happening. So an organization as a whole is made up of relationships. It's the social graph of an organization. And look, if you have a look at this is an actual picture of Ramco from 30,000 feet. If you look at it and you look at all the relationships within Ramco, this is what it looks like. It's a whole series of connections. People come and go, but at the end of the day, it's a series of connections. What we do at TrustSphere is we understand and analyze and contextualize the relationships. We don't look at the content of messages. We understand from email communication, voice communication, in fact, another slide, from email, voice, IM, SMS, all sorts of digital communications, the social graph of an organization. And from the social graph, we understand, we pick up a huge number of insights. In terms of some of those insights, what we're doing is we're bringing together what I'd call really pure real-time data, which enables actionable insights. So it's all great to have this. We talk about big data, and people talk about big data all the time. Big data has to have a use. How do you use it? And how do you use it practically and simply to do something that actually moves the dial on your own business? So we're working with clients of ours who are using it really to improve their own competitiveness, to really transform the way that they operate in the marketplace. They're using it for things like managing supplier relationships, so looking for instance, inappropriate relationships with vendors and suppliers. Within the HCM context, we're looking at identifying key influences within an organization. Who are the most connected? Who are the most active individuals within the organization? And as you roll out change management programs, you're able to actually pinpoint those who are the most influential. How you do it with evidence rather than anecdotally. We have the ability to identify and retain top talent. We can see when we in our labs right now, we're working on how do we actually identify and predict when someone is about to leave. So we can do that with a reasonable amount of accuracy based on changes or deltas in their communication flow. Also, if somebody does leave, who are the other people who are likely to be impacted? Who is their circle of influence? So if you're going to put retention bonuses in, or you're going to put a retention program in, who do you focus on? The other thing we do is we improve customer retention by making sure that customers themselves aren't neglected. And the analytics give you a real insight into which customers are being actively managed and maintained, and those that aren't. And the other thing that we do is we identify and predict fraud. So again, through communication patterns and just analyzing communication patterns that are going on, you can start to see where fraud, we're working with a number of financial services companies and insurers to actually identify and predict where fraudulent patterns are occurring within the organization and who's potentially involved in that. So in any case, relationship analytics has a very broad spectrum of applications. And again, our partnership with Ramco is we're working on specifically how do we bring that to the human capital management environment as well as to other environments as well. And I thought the easiest way to, if you can indulge me for a couple of minutes, I'll show you a quick demonstration. And I'm going to cheat a little because I've already prepared a demonstration. So hopefully there's a video that can be played. He says.
I'd like to do a quick demonstration of TrustView here. This is the dashboard that you start with. Let's have a look at a couple of interesting views that folks use across the board. Let's have a look at, first of all, the relationship view. If you're an account manager and you want to understand what's happening within a particular account, how does that look, and how do you use the analytics to further your decisions? Here we're looking at TrustSphere's relationships with IBM, just as an example. What we can also see is how that works over a period of time. So we can go back and have a look at how that relationship evolved over a time frame. So very quickly, as you can see here, the relationships are being added, and certain relationships are getting stronger and stronger at points in time. This becomes very easy from a visual perspective to understand what's happening for an account manager to understand on a global basis what is happening with their particular account and when interesting activities occur within those accounts as well. The other thing that's quite interesting, and I'll give you another view, is let's say we wanted to drill down and look at an individual. So we wanted to look at a specific individual. Let's say it was my colleague Mark in Australia, and again with IBM. We can look at all his relationships with IBM. You can see quickly that there's a number of strong relationships he has, and a number of weaker ones. So 51 relationships in total. Let's just look at the strength of his relationships, so the really strong relationships, with the ones with the highest trust score. You can see that there's a number here. What we can see is what they've been talking about. You can get an idea as to what they've been talking about. Again, we're getting into the metadata here. You can see the sorts of activities that they've got, they've been talking about. We can get some more details on that. So you can dive in and you can get the message ID and whether there's the message size as well. What we can do with certain partners is go into the content there as well. What we also are able to do is look at, who else does this particular person have relationships with at TrustSphere? So we provide both the inside-out view and the outside-in view from the perspective of the networks. So again, it gives you a very clear view as to who actually within the organization knows any particular person and how they're connected. The last report I'll quickly show you is imagine that Mark was now to leave. And we wanted to very quickly we wanted to see who are his connections and who are his contacts at IBM. We can first of all find every relationship he has. He has 691 relationships. He's obviously very busy. What we can do is say, okay, now let's find all of the relationships. So there's 68 relationships he has with IBM, and we can see how current and how recent those relationships are. You can see the strength of those relationships as well. So you can, each of those has a trust score. So it's, again, a very powerful tool to be able to provide a set of analytics to help anybody make decisions based on evidence rather than just instinct.
So I'll just make 2 quick comments on that. One, we never look at the content of messages. From a privacy perspective, privacy is very important, so we don't touch the content at all. And you can also limit the amounts of data. We specifically respect the protocols that are in the host applications we work with, such that the access controls are given only to those who actually are entitled to see the data. Thank you very much.